My name is Vivian, and at 24, my life was quiet enough that most days seemed to fold gently into one another. I worked as a secretary at an insurance company, where the ticking of clocks and the rustling of paperwork formed the soundtrack of my weekdays. On Saturdays, I escaped to my favorite little cafe, where I always chose the same corner table, and disappeared into a novel. I used to think that the happiest stories only happened to other people. That spring morning, sunlight spilled through the windows as if it had decided the whole cafe deserved to glow. I had just reached a particularly beautiful passage in my book when the front door burst open and a young man hurried inside. He scanned the room, his eyes paused on me for the briefest heartbeat, and then he walked straight to my table. Smiling, still catching his breath, he asked, "Hi, I'm Henry. Do you mind if I join you for a moment?" Before I could answer, he sat down, brushed his hair back, and glanced anxiously toward the entrance. Leaning close enough that only I could hear him, he whispered, "I need your help. My parents are arriving any minute. They're visiting, and I promised to introduce them to my girlfriend." I stared at him, unable to understand how someone else's impossible problem had suddenly landed on my quiet Saturday morning. He pleaded softly for me to pretend just for 5 minutes, and my face grew so warm that I had to lower my eyes. I tried to refuse, but before the words had fully left my lips, the cafe door opened once again. An elegant woman and a distinguished gentleman entered, smiling warmly as they recognized Henry. He embraced them, and then all 3 pairs of eyes settled on me. "And this is?" his mother asked, while Henry looked at me with silent hope shining behind his nervous smile. "Vivian," I whispered, surprised that my voice managed to emerge at all. And somehow that single word carried me across an invisible bridge I had never intended to cross. His parents joined us, talking cheerfully, while I answered only when spoken to, terrified that one wrong sentence would unravel everything. My heart beat so loudly that I was certain everyone at the table could hear it, and my trembling hands refused to obey me. Then suddenly, Henry gently took them into his own, as naturally as though he had always known they belonged there. Warmth spread through me, like the first sunlight after winter, and for one impossible moment, the whole cafe seemed wrapped in a quiet kind of magic that no one else appeared to notice. As the conversation drifted around me, I found myself stealing shy glances at Henry's face. There was kindness hidden beneath his confidence, and every now and then he smiled at me with such quiet gratitude that I forgot we were only pretending. Somewhere inside me, a strange thought appeared, that perhaps some people arrive in our lives like unexpected chapters, written before we even know the story exists. I wondered whether destiny sometimes borrowed the ordinary as a disguise. Eventually, Henry's father stood and announced that they had errands to finish together, and just like that, our borrowed little world began to dissolve. We all rose from the table exchanged handshakes, and I prepared myself for the relief of returning to my familiar solitude. Then his father laughed and suggested there was still time for a goodbye kiss, leaving both Henry and me blushing in embarrassed silence. Before either of us could think too much, I stepped forward and placed the gentlest kiss upon Henry's cheek, and when our eyes met afterward, the silence between us somehow felt fuller than words. Henry's parents walked towards the door, and he followed them before turning back one last time to whisper, "Thank you." I smiled, watching him disappear into the bright spring morning, carrying with him 5 minutes that somehow felt larger than an entire season. Even now, whenever I return to that little cafe with a book in my hands, I sometimes catch myself glancing toward the door without meaning to. Perhaps some encounters are never meant to become love stories, yet they still leave behind a quiet light that teaches your heart to believe that magic sometimes wears the ordinary face of a stranger.